Hello and welcome to D-Hub MT YouTube channel, podcast brought to you by European Digital Innovation Hub, powered by MDIA, Malta Digital Innovation Authority. Our guest speaker today is Miss Claire Ciancio, who is CEO and founder of Green Roads, and who also has a love for nature with a firm belief that our collective ability can construct a brighter future. She envisions a world characterized by clean air, reduced pollution, and less congested traffic. Her mission revolves around devising solutions that utilize road data and engage citizens to enhance outdoor environments, daily commutes, and overall quality of life. It sounds like a dream. You think this dream is possible, Claire?
This is why we strive. This is what we strive for. You have to start from an ideal. I think every business person might be called naive, might be called too ambitious, might be called a dreamer, but you have to believe and you have to collectively work together in order to make things happen. If you start from a cynical point of view and you say, no, we're too far off, it's not possible, then nothing's going to get done and we're going to stay where we are.
What led you to this? Was it the way we're living? Because obviously you hear a lot about traffic, you hear a lot about pollution, we hear a lot about congestion, but you as a person, were all these factors your driving force to do what you do today?
So earlier in life, I was always brought up the love of nature. I'm the eldest of 6 children. My mom was always very entrepreneurial. You can imagine to grow up a family of 6 plus mom and dad, 8 people. It takes quite a bit of household management. And apart from that, my dad was very adventurous and he's very technical in nature. So I grew up with that love for exploration, love for nature, asking questions, understanding how things are brought about. And of course, later on in my school days, I studied sciences. I wanted to discover what, why, chemistry, physics, biology, the basics of human life. And that led me to my university days. Initially, I was going to specialize more on the IT side. But when I joined, I started feeling like I was a cog in a wheel if I would just know the programming side of things. So I chose to study political science, which gave me a bit of a broader view of why things are the way they are. And with that, I also did anthropology, which helped me understand a bit the overall consciousness of society and how we develop as a humankind. And I think these years were very forming. The early days in my life, plus the university, and having switched courses, I found myself without a stipend and I was working for a private company. And this, because I needed to sustain myself, of course. And this led me earlier on to start working with startups and to start understanding that I could potentially be driving an enterprise myself.
And shape a future.
And shape a future. And I saw that, okay, my place in life could be through running a business, because through running a business, it doesn't just have to be for money. Traditionally, businesses might be seen as beasts which strive to make a profit at all costs. But that's no longer the sustainable way forward. I think any business that anyone who thinks about building something new has to come with how can we shape a better future together. It's no longer a question of disposable goods, buying and trashing things, but looking how can I improve the situation that we're in. And if everybody does that and focuses even on little things, should I buy a plastic plant for the office or should I not? The way of transport, this is what we're focusing on. In fact, it was thanks to colleagues at students at university who I was studying with, who later we started also working together, who instilled in me, let's try and solve this traffic problem. I was like, really? Solve this traffic problem? Is it even possible? But then you start working and you start getting involved in the sector and you start discovering what and why are we in the situation that we are in today? And as we went along, we started with a lot of behavioral change initiatives, with Transport Malta and advocating for mixed choice of mobility. And we realized that data would be key into driving a change in the infrastructure, because let's face it, it has to come both ways. It has to come from the people who want and who demand different infrastructure, but also the infrastructure has to adapt in order to accommodate the evolving needs of people.
How? That would bring me to my next question on how. I'm imagining myself like how you were as a child. Probably you were a what and how child and why.
Exactly.
Now I'm taking that place in today's podcast. How can you explain to us, and how can we integrate AI and technology into enhancing a better quality of life, an overall quality of life? How can this be done?
Okay, so traditionally, when roads are designed, when we think about infrastructure, we think about cars. So if you are collecting data and statistics which is revolving around cars, obviously you will plan roads and open spaces to accommodate primarily cars. And even when you design parks, you design them in isolation, not as part of the grid, not as part of a holistic environment. And this is where we're coming from. We understood that by focusing on very focused areas, I mean, AI and sensory technology can be used from any kind of area. So there is, from the wider side of things, one could use, for example, mobile data. One could use satellite data. One could use different type of sensors like LiDAR, radar. But we focus on road cameras as green roads. Why? Because road cameras can give you a very in-depth know-how of what's happening right now. And by understanding what's happening right now, I can plan better for the current and the evolving needs of society.
Okay.
Things will not always be the same. Roads and open spaces are a living organism. The success and the economic well-being of a country is defined by how much people move. Traffic essentially and the flow of people is like the blood supply of the economy.
Mm-hmm. You can tell which day it is by how much traffic there is.
Exactly, exactly. And it's important to collect this data anonymously, of course, and use it to power future decision making. What if, for example, we had to postpone the delivery times of commercial vehicles? What if we had to schedule buses more frequently during certain hours? What if we, and you can imagine and you can collectively come up with decisions before you even make them happen. Because if you implement a whole infrastructure without actually doing the what if scenarios, you end up spending more money and more time and a lot of inconvenience for people without even taking into consideration these in-depth needs. And nowadays with a lot is happening on the digital twin sector, so it's possible for cities to see and to predict what would happen, but you, of course, you need the inputs for these simulators, and the inputs comes from the real world data.
What upcoming projects and initiatives do you have in store, and how would you say they can participate to create a meaningful project? Because obviously from data gathered, then something needs to be implemented. So how is this process done? And even if you can give us an idea of the duration, because sometimes if you take long to implement something, the data you would have collected
would become irrelevant.
This is not a problem, I would say, but this is the situation when it comes to AI technology. It's very fast moving. So you have to gather the data, you have to implement, you have to make a change. Other than that, it would become irrelevant by the time you implement.
Cool. So from traditionally, how things are done are either using pneumatic tubes or having people in the control room and manually visually checking the situation on the road network. And of course, that is time consuming. Whereas if you use existing infrastructure, which you already have on the roads, of course, we're very conscious about data privacy. This is not like facial recognition or number plates in order to give tickets. This is purely from a pattern recognition point of view. So we understand, is that a person, this is the project that we're working on right now and that we've just released. So our software algorithm would sit together just like any other person would see the cameras in a control room. Our software would also read what's happening. Is that a person? Is that a bicycle? Is that a motorcycle? Is that a bus? Is that a truck? What kind of truck is it? And then it understands how are they behaving on the road network. And over time, you can see charts, you can see when they're more busy, you can choose by mode of transport, you can choose by time of the day, by type of the day. And you can also aggregate this data with weather, with school schedules. You can aggregate with GIS systems, and you can get a lot of in-depth information when you combine all this wealth of knowledge together. So this is where we're going. Where we are is that we already have this technology, it's up and running. We've done some small implementations in Malta and in Gozo, and our intention is to keep on growing this implementation.
And I think the positive side of this is that the data collected is immediately processed.
Exactly, and
there's no editing and doing this or that, but it's immediately processed.
Exactly.
So you have results immediately from the data collected.
That's it. In fact, it's even faster than live.
It's true.
If, for example, if you give it a recorded video, it would record it much faster than the duration of the video, for example, because the speed is not like humans. They can go into more, the algorithm can go into more depth and can provide this wealth of information.
While we're at the subject, even us as people who choose our transport, what can we do towards the environment as humans? AI can do its work, but I believe that us as humans can do our work as well.
Of course. In fact, I don't believe in technology for the sake of technology. Okay, I like technology, but it's a tool. It's always about the human. It's always about the environment. It's all about human relations. It's all about how the world is evolving. For example, I've got these to demonstrate. Okay, I have a driving license. I drive. I enjoy driving. Car is useful, and sometimes you can't do away with some trips being made by your personal vehicle. Fine. But today I decided to come by bus because the bus is a much more convenient method of transport. I live in Injar. I commuted to Birkirkara, walked from Birkirkara to here. Along the journey, I did lots of work. I was planning meetings, organizing, replying to emails. So it's not time wasted, it's time used. Instead of sitting in an office nowadays with tech, I can be actively working while sitting on a bus. And I also got a bell of a bicycle. Maybe I can ring it for the fun of it. And this represents the bicycle, which I believe is collectively these three modes represent a wider range of moving abilities, and of course our feet.
Exactly. Besides walking, I was just going to say.
Our feet are the most, even if you drive, even if you use the bus, you still have to walk. You still have to park. You still have to get off the bus and walk the last bit. Probably even when using a bicycle, you're going to tie it up somewhere, and then you need to walk. Maybe you need to walk less when you're cycling. Whereas when you're using a bus or when you're parking,
you need to walk more.
Exactly, you need to walk more. And of course, our legs are things that we carry with us, and they're God's gift, and we need to use them. And there's nothing wrong with combining your daily activities, your daily meetings with active time. Why go on the gym and spend hours on a treadmill? That's just plain stupid when you can just walk to the office now.
True. No. So we have to be more conscious of our decisions.
Exactly.
We need to take better decisions.
And sometimes it's not because we don't want to, but because we switch to a default mode, and it's like we are stuck in this rut, and the most convenient and the most method we're used to is getting in the morning, getting the key to the car, sticking it into the ignition, and we're kind of automated. We don't want to think. And if we start the day with, okay, what am I going to do today? Should I
better planning, better choices?
Exactly. Even while in the shower, you don't need to stop doing your active things in the day. But I think as humans, it needs to start by us, and we need to, if we are all cycling, obviously, the infrastructure would be designed to accommodate more cyclists. But if we're all driving, what do we expect? I mean, of course, politicians need to cater for the needs of people as well. And it's a chicken and egg. What should come first? Is it more the infrastructure? Is it the behavior? I think they both need to collectively. And
True.
we are at a
It's
phase.
easier to just say, oh, that's a traffic problem.
Exactly.
But what
Or
am
it's
I
not
doing?
safe to cycle. Why don't you try to get the bus?
Mhm.
Is it really because the bus is not convenient, or is it because your mindset is so stuck that you don't even want to admit it? Or is it because you feel like you're the king of the road and you deserve that car that you're so passionately driving? And maybe you say, oh, I have an electric. Still, an electric is causing clutter. It could lead to congestion. It leads to still potential accidents. I mean, by switching my car from a diesel or petrol to an electric, I'm not doing much. And this is the kind of behavioral choices that I think needs to come from the community and from the people.
It's easier to complain. It's harder to
do
take
exactly
a better decision. But I believe we can get there.
Yes, and that's the stance where we started. I mean, we want to believe, and we think that there is a better way of doing things.
Claire, if I had to ask you for your concluding comment in all this, and obviously your message to our viewers, whether they are people who are involved and work in the AI industry, or whether they are just viewers who are watching the program out of interest, what would your message be out there, both for the people in the industry and both for our viewers in general?
Okay, so the message would be, think about yourself and think about society as a whole, and don't say, but others should do that. What would I do? What am I willing to give up? How am I willing to use technology? And when thinking about technology for good and technology for doing things better than traditionally we have done them. If you're just doing another system, just for the sake of doing another system and competing in the industry, without trying to do anything better for humanity, for society, for the environment, please do us a favor and don't do it at all, because we don't just need any more initiatives which are artificial, which are fake. We need to be real to ourselves and to future generations as well, because in the end, this is the only ecosystem. We might aspire to travel and to go to the moon and to go to the stars and to build colonies, and we might think about more than this world as a whole, but this is the only ecosystem that sustains us. This is where we live, this is where we belong, and we need to work with planet Earth, and we need to work with each other in order to make things convenient for us, and in order to allow the world to keep on sustaining us in the end of the day.
Thank you, Claire, for being with us. That was Claire Ciancio. I also thank you for watching, and I encourage you to continue watching these podcasts, obviously from one week to another. And so stay tuned. We have more guests coming up for you, and do reach out to us also to pass your message, to pass your comments. We'll be happy to hear from you. Thank you for watching.